Can you change that? Someone's put vodka in it. Okay. That'll work. Okay, we're getting close. A couple more people to come in, enjoying their Bellingham lunch, I hope. If not, you know where to go. Okay, I think we might close the doors. As I mentioned prior to lunch, I'm John Spragg from Bellingham Marine. I'm just shy of 25 years in the industry, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mark Saunders. He is a guest from, he's the president of West Point Harbour Marina, a full-service harbour located in Redwood City, and it's one of the first marinas to be built in San Francisco Bay in many decades. So if you think you've got permit problems, talk to Mark. Marina Dock Age named West Point Harbour in 2018 Marina of the Year. Sanders' primary career was in technology, most recently as President and CEO of Pinnacle Systems Incorporated. Sanders is a Fellow of the Society of Television and Motion Picture Engineers, far cleverer than me, and was named Entrepreneur of the Year. Prior to Pinnacle, Mark held various executive positions with Ampex Corporation, Director for public and private companies including Bell, Micro Products, LookSmart Inc., Pinnacle Systems and ACOM. He holds an engineering degree from California Polytechnic State University and an MBA from Golden Gate University. I have visited Mark's marina a couple of times and I've heard Mark speak before. I think you'll all enjoy this next session immensely. So, Mark Sanders.
Thank you, John. So I will talk about how to maximize your marina assets, but I have to start off by saying there are about 17,000 marinas in the US. There's about 400 in San Francisco. And the best of the lot in San Francisco, especially in California too, really don't compare to Aussie and New Zealand marinas. So you are already a cut ahead. So many of the things that I'll tell you about will be relevant in making the point, but it won't be comparable to some of the things I've seen here. So as John said, this is West Point Harbor. It is the first new marina in about 40 years, new private marina. And it took literally 20 years to get the permits, 4 years to dig the biggest hole in San Mateo County. Considered the most environmentally thoughtful marina. All the dirt that came out of the basin was used to build the uplands. And so we've got a lot of good press because of that. Now, to start off, I'm going to talk about the approach to take when you look to this competitive environment we're in. And I'll use what's called the blue ocean strategy. Red ocean, so there's really two playing fields in most businesses. Red ocean is where most everybody operates, whether it's automobiles, airlines, making tennis shoes, or making boats. It's ruthless, fierce competition. It's blood in the water, sharks eating sharks. And the objective is generally beat your competition. And typically, if you're going to get market share, somebody else has got to lose market share. So it's a no net gain. There is an approach to business that's called blue ocean, where it's calm waters. You basically have very little competition, or it's irrelevant. And that's because you've defined your markets, your customers, your products, or your services so carefully that you basically have no competition. They're often uncontested spaces. Typically, you have what's called value innovation, and I'll give you a few examples. Julie Packard developed Monterey Bay Aquarium in Monterey, California, and it was a completely new kind of aquarium. It was immersive, it was totally interactive. It changed the world of aquariums around the world. Elon Musk certainly changed the world of electric cars. Now, electric cars have been around since the 20s. There's been many, many manufacturers, but he has now recently passed Jaguar in the terms of number of cars being sold every year. So he's redefined that market. Apple iPhone. I knew Steve Jobs, and when he said, I'm going to get in the phone business, I thought he was nuts. Motorola, Nokia dominated the industry. BlackBerry was the dominant personal assistant, and he's going to get in the phone business. But who imagined that how he would redefine the telephone? Of course, the cameras and being able to use GPS and all the features. But he got millions of developers to develop applications for his phone for free, and they pay him for the service. Apple went from being near bankruptcy to off and on the most valuable company on earth because of the iPhone. He never even thought about competing with Nokia or Motorola. So that's a really good example of redefining your market and your products in a whole new way. In terms of how you do that, it's oftentimes you have to define new customers and to make the competition irrelevant. A great example is Southwest Airlines in North America. Airline businesses are ruthless. Most airlines are one bad quarter away from bankruptcy all the time. And Southwest targeted automobile travelers, people that are going from Los Angeles to San Diego or San Diego to Vegas or Vegas to San Francisco, short hops, and they made flying so easy, so inexpensive, and so comfortable, they made a whole new market. They didn't take any market away from any other airline. They created a new one. So it's a great example of taking on a blue ocean strategy. It's not necessarily a choice between do you want to be high quality or low cost. You can often have low cost and high quality at the same time. Oftentimes, if you're successful, there is only one winner, and that's you, but there are no losers. And I put the Ferrari logo because it's probably my favorite example. If you want a Ferrari, there is no other car. There is simply nothing you consider. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. The sound, they don't advertise, they don't market, they don't discount. You have to get in line to buy one and get permission to buy one. Now that is a blue market strategy. They have no relevant competition. So let's bring that back to marinas and new design. Now if you get to design a new marina, as I did, it's an awful lot easier. The competition can't respond because the capital expenditures, the infrastructure, so hard to change. So, and you have the benefit of history. And so in West Point, in the South San Francisco Bay, a couple of things happened. One, we ended up being the center of Silicon Valley, the absolute center of Silicon Valley. So the clientele changed rapidly. More importantly, all the marinas in the Bay were 40, 50, 60 years old, built in the 60s when the big boating boom took place. One city in Southern California, Costa Mesa, at one time had 250 boat manufacturers cranking out boats every day, all 25 to 30 feet. So marinas were designed for that. So we targeted big boats. Our average slip size is 52 feet. We go from a few 36s up to 132. All the marinas within reasonable distance go up to 40 feet. So they are simply not relevant competition, and we aren't for them. We actually don't want their customers. And so targeting today's boaters and looking to the future is a big argument for a blue ocean strategy. So a few facts I think are common around the world. Boats are getting bigger, a lot bigger. As I said, 40 years ago, a big boat was 25 or 30 feet. Now a big boat's 125, 130 feet. That's changed a lot. The idea of a parking lot for boats is just passé. If you don't have a destination resort, you're not going to make it in this business. And the party we had last night at Southport is a great example. Here's a marina that's club, or the club that has a marina, it has a boatyard, it has a helipad, it has everything. It is truly a resort that attracts the high end of the business. And recognize you are in the hospitality business. You're not in the parking lot business anymore. Most boating today is actually in the slip. When boats were 25, 26 feet, you get on them, you go out and you fish or you sail and you bring them back. When your boat's 40, 50 feet, you have a lot of amenities on board. You entertain on board. You may get underway and go to another marina and entertain in that marina. But recognize that boating is in the slip to a great extent these days. And the top marinas around the world are about half water and half land. We're a 50-acre site, 26 acres of water and 24 acres of land, and the land side amenities are full. And that's the definition of top marinas these days. You have to have those onshore facilities. You have to be environmentally thoughtful. And these onshore facilities generate lots of new business opportunities. Cast a wide net. Earlier today, people were talking about the demographic of boaters in America, at least. The marina owners are wringing their hands. Gee, boaters were 40, then 50, now 60-year-old average. Where are the new boaters coming from? You have to recognize it's not just keel boats. In San Francisco Bay, there's 17,000 wet slips, well over 100,000 boats on trailers, and millions of kayaks and paddle boards and stand-up and kite boards and everything else. Stand-up paddle boards are the #1 sporting goods item sold in the United States. More than tennis rackets, more than footballs, more than baseball mitts, stand-up paddle boards. It's a real market. Marinas, in the States at least, say, what a problem. These guys are just a pain. They don't recognize this as an opportunity. First of all, these hand-launched craft, that's the gateway drug for bigger boats. That's where people start off. They don't start off with an El Toro and go up to bigger boats. They start off with hand-launched craft because it's so easy and so much fun. So recognize that as an opportunity. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Understand today is a sharing economy. You're going to hear a whole lot more about this, so I won't go into this in detail. But people today, millennials especially, they don't want to own boats. They just want to experience boats. And so boat clubs, boat rentals, schools, charters, Airbnb, it is a hot item. It is not going away, so embrace it. It is just another facet of your business and a way to differentiate yourself. So satisfied customers is a great strategy, so you really need to know what customers want. A couple of things. We were talking earlier, the fella from Volvo was talking about the scariest part of boating is coming back onto your slip on a blustery day. That big sharp corner sticking out on the end of the finger. And it's a terrifying experience. And for a lot of boaters, 1 or 2 bad experiences, they're out of boating. And another thing that's happening, this may be more peculiar to Silicon Valley. The demographics within 10 miles of our marina, the average household income is about 300,000 Australian dollars. 2-income families, just 2 people, both with advanced degrees, lots of money and no time. So for them, they will go out and buy a 50-footer as the first boat and then start looking around for someone to teach them how to use it. And if they had a bad experience, they're not coming back. The average boat owner of a larger boat has it 3.5 years. That's it. So this gets into marina design, which is going to be John's patch, but big, wide, stable docks. One-piece fingers with round ends. Now, we were the first marina in the States to have round ends. I thought it was a great idea. I talked to 30 dock manufacturers. This is 15 years ago. Why do you want round boats, round fingers? And I said, don't you guys boat? And they said, no, we build docks, and square docks are really easy. So that became a really differentiating factor. We have big fairways, single-piece docks so they don't twist, they don't sag, they don't get hogged, and they're round on the ends. To my surprise, happy surprise, it's very common here in Australia. Who knew? I didn't know that. Optimized for wind direction. Most marinas, at least in the States, you have the upwind slips that everybody wants and the downwind slips that nobody wants. That's a design problem. You don't have to design them that way. Wind is a problem in the bay. The average afternoon wind in San Francisco is 35 knots in the summertime. And so wind waves in harbors is a problem. And if you design it right, an 8-inch wind wave coming in the Marina Basin reflects off the riprap on the outside and comes back. And if it's designed badly, it reinforces and you got a 15-inch wave. If you design it right, it comes back and cancels, you got no wave at all. So marina design, which yields boating comfort and security, is a big, big deal. Pile guides. I can't tell you how many sails and garden hoses and power cords and feet have been torn by the rollers that stick up off pilings with cotter keys and that sort of thing. Decks that are clean, free of trip hazards, make people more comfortable. Most of the world still uses med mooring. They tie up the stern, they throw an anchor up in the front, and it works, but it requires some real skill. Australia, North America, Most everybody has docks with fingers. Most commonly double-loaded docks, which means a finger with 2 boats in between, which is efficient. But once a boater's got a finger on both sides, they never go back. They never go back. So recognize that's the way it's going. Bigger boats, less skilled boaters, those single loaded slips are a real premium if you want to attract big boats. The exception is under 35. So all our slips are single finger except 35 and below. And the reason is, one, the fingers get to be a bigger and bigger proportion of the slip, of course, so it's more costly and less efficient. But catamarans, multi-hulls are exploding. I was recently sailing in the Caribbean. The last time I went, it was all monohulls, all sloops. Now it's all cats, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. You can put cats in a double 35-foot, double 40-foot slip. So all of our, and we probably have 24 35-foot slips and more 40s, they're all cats. Bias your slip mix to bigger boats. Big power. Power demands are insatiable. Air conditioning, washer, dryer, ice maker, there seems to be no limit to what people want to put on their boats. And so having big power, our smallest slips have dual 50 amp, 125 and 50 amp power, and they use it. And then we have in-slip pump out. We were the first one again in California to have a pump out hydrant at every slip. People again thought it was crazy, but it made the harbor so much cleaner, and it's so convenient because they don't have to get underway to go to a pump out station on a dock. So everybody uses it. This is a shot of West Point Harbor. You can see the harbor office itself. Here you see the concrete docks. They happen to be Bellingham docks. Thank you, Bellingham. And it looks like they have the whalers, which looks like it's holding sections in. These are one piece. And they're round on the end, as you can see. So a boater comes in, he doesn't avoid that corner. He lays a hull right against it, slides right around the corner into a slip. Makes life easy. The other thing is, they're so much stronger, there's no pile on the end. How many times you've seen a bowsprit or a bow pulpit or handrails gnarled up because they came in, it was windy, they got blown against the dock, and they hit the pile. Don't have that problem. Up to 60 feet at least. Here's a shot of, we use round pile guides because then we can have circular pile guides under the deck. They scrape all the mussels and shells off the pile, so it's a clean looking dock. Again, no trip hazards. The dock on the right, this is a real marina. It's not far from West Point, and I hate to say it, but that's not uncommon in California. Most marinas in California are municipal harbors. They're not well maintained. They're run by people that don't know much about boating. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but customer focus, free dock boxes. You don't make any money on ice. Make ice free. Everybody appreciates it. Have fabulous Wi-Fi. I'm going to come back to that in a second. We have about a mile of paths with decks and benches. We have golf carts all over the harbor people use. They're easy to drive. They love it. And maybe most important, establish clear quality standards. We tell everybody we want well-maintained, actively used boats. We don't want somebody looking for free housing or low-cost housing. We don't want a ghetto boat. We don't want somebody growing pot in their forward cabin. We want high-quality boats. We check every boat before it comes in. They have to have current insurance, current registration. That tends to become a self-selecting process. The ghetto boats simply don't apply anymore. So that's an important thing to consider. Quality boats mean quality customers. And ESD testing. This is a hot button for me. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I'll get rid of that. You probably all know this, but 13% of all boats in the world have lethal levels of leakage current into the water. Most marina drownings are in fact electrocutions. And it's so simple to test for. It takes a moment. You just clamp a clamp-on meter around the power cord, and it's good or it's bad. And the boaters appreciate it. They say, well, it's a hot harbor. It's not a hot harbor. It's usually a bad boat, burning up the zincs on all the boats around them. They really appreciate looking up for them, and there's nothing more devastating than a death in a harbor, a bad injury in a harbor. So test your boats. It doesn't cost anything. It's a customer benefit. Full service, again, I'll pick on Southport. It's a great example of a full-service marina. They have boat yards, they have a launch ramp, they have hand launch facilities, so you don't have kayakers and paddleboarders mixing up with power boaters launching power boats where they're flushing the engines and running the motors. We have community gardens. We have all kinds of services. Some people don't want to pump out their own boats. They don't want to fill their own water tanks. We do a lot of catering on the dock. It makes a big difference. And even if people don't use it, they appreciate it. Boat yards don't have to be ugly, gritty businesses. This is one of the 2 boat yard buildings we have in our harbor. This is, the lower right-hand picture is a very low freeboard dock. We have a lot of rowers, Stanford, Santa Clara University, 8-man shells. They want very low freeboard. This dock will take 2 8-man shells at a time, hundreds of paddleboaters, kayakers. We cater to them. We put it at a part of the harbor where it doesn't interfere with the other boats. We also have a lot of these floats with canopies on them. You can see it with these. These are actually stand-up paddleboards that are foiling with electric drives. So it's amazing to see people standing on a paddleboard 2 feet off the water going 30 knots down past the marina with no paddle. And they can do it for 30 minutes. It's crazy. They love it. And so people that have big boats, I don't know why, but no matter how big the boat is, they have too much gear. So our onshore locker service is white hot. We make more money on that than we do on the wet slips. We have long waiting lists. And in this case, we let people rent these docks, which fit in a slip. They're shaped to exactly fill up a slip, and they can store their gear on it. So we have 5 or 6 of these in the harbor. So now I'm going to talk about a couple of unfair advantages. You already know all the things you could be doing to differentiate your harbor. At least in North America, how many people have any Wi-Fi problems in your harbor? Anybody? Not a soul? Well, I'll tell you, in the States, it's terrible. And being in the middle of Silicon Valley, late at night when 80% of the web traffic is movies from Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu, the whole system craters. And so what we've done is, first of all, recognize the problem is almost never the Wi-Fi system of the marina. It's at the boat. So people have old cell phones, they have old laptops, wireless A, wireless B, wireless G. They're old versions that were designed for coffee shops, good for 50 feet. And they use the same frequencies of microwave ovens, and so you're online and the guy next door makes popcorn, he kicks 5 boaters off the line. And so that's where the problem is. And it's a round trip, so getting the signal to the boat's not the problem. Those old devices are designed for optimal battery life, and so their signal going back is weak, so they can't make the complete circuit. That's the problem. So we have, it's called premium Wi-Fi. All the customers call it crack Wi-Fi because they say, we don't think we really need it. We say, try it for a few days. No one has ever returned it, not a soul. It's a symmetrical gigabit service. We have gigabit links to 2 different sources, battery backup, a firewall, of course, and we don't require a contract. There's no bandwidth limits. There's no service slumps. It's dead reliable. And once somebody downloads a movie in 4 seconds flat, they never go back. So the key is we have the service and we have the Wi-Fi access points all around the harbor. I think we have 6 and they're hanging on light posts. The key is at the boat. We give them a device that costs about $60, the size of a cigarette package. It's called a nanostation, and you point it at one of the access points and it brings Wi-Fi rock solid to the boat. And then it is also a router, so you have your own private secure Wi-Fi on your boat, and you're completely independent of any device they have. So this is a shot of the marina. Let's see if I can see here. So here you see that on the top of the building, these are dishes one going to Palo Alto, one going to Redwood City. That's bringing in the gigabit feed, and it's symmetrical, so it's a gigabit upload and download. And over here you see an access point. There's, as I said, 6 of those around the harbor. Some of them are pretty far away, so we use these links to link the signal to them. It's good for a mile. So any place in the harbor, plus if they're offshore a little bit. And this is a nanostation. And so we give every boater one of those. They love it. And so we don't have we just have 0 complaints about Wi-Fi. We do have people that come to the harbor because of the Wi-Fi. Now, we have Google right next door. We have Facebook 3 miles away. We have engineers and marketeers coming to their boat because the service is faster to work. So consider using Wi-Fi as an unfair advantage. Another one is, earlier the session just before lunch, they were talking about how women look at marinas differently. Guys come in, they want to know about the depth, the wind, the current. Women want to see the showers and the restrooms. That's how they kick the tires in a marina. So we have granite countertops with tile and pewter fixtures. It's all mirrored, it's beautiful, and it's just like the Ritz-Carlton. We have high-end laundry. Most marinas have laundry machines that are rugged, reliable, slow, and you jam coins in them. Nobody wants to do that anymore. So we have high-end laundry room facilities, walls, TV sets, and we just ding them once a month for the service. They use it as much as they want. So the restrooms, the showers, the laundry caters to the other half of the decision-making process when people pick a harbor. I mentioned pump out at every slip. I mentioned the community garden. We do have a helipad. It gets used quite a bit. Party barges. I was shocked to see what we call a party barge at the marina down the road. If I can. So in the lower right-hand corner, this was an accidental success story. We ordered several different kinds of docks from competitors to see which one we liked the best, knowing that we use them for work docks in the boatyard someday. And on a whim, we put some chairs and a table on it, and I took the bimini off my boat and put it on it just as a feature in the harbor, and people started using it. In a week, they were fighting over it. And so we built another one, much nicer. We now have 5. Some of them are quite large. Here you can see a very large, oops, I didn't mean to do that. This is a cruise in. It probably seated 40 people. They love to party on the docks. And so they're free to the users. They move around. Somebody with a 40-foot boat invites 30 people to his boat, doesn't have room. He grabs a party barge and they overflow on it and they love it. Sometimes we'll rack up 2 or 3 or 4 at a time. So consider that. It's so easy to do. Customers love it. And more importantly, it's a social focal point for the boat, for the harbor. People walk down the dock, get on their boat, they don't know their neighbors. If there's a party barge on almost every dock, you can't get past one without somebody offering you a beer or a glass of wine or a snack, and you get to know people, and before you know it, everybody's hanging out on the party barge, not on their boat. A couple of controversial advantages that different areas think differently about it. Liveaboard boats. Well-managed liveaboards are a huge advantage. They certainly add life to the docks. We have 416 slips, we have 43 liveaboards, and they add security, the eyes and ears for the harbor. It's like having 43 unpaid helpers. No boat taken on water or the bilge pumps running too much or canvas is flying away, we know about it in minutes, or it's handled by them. So it adds a lot of security, it doubles the margin, and if you're selective, it helps you establish a high-quality culture. First of all, we talk about active boats and well-maintained boats. All the boards have to be 40 feet or above. That means they have facilities on board. They're not really a burden for the harbor. They typically have laundry, showers, restrooms, galley, and all that stuff. With pump out at every slip, it's not a polluting issue. So it actually is an entirely positive attribute. We've had no problems at all. The trick is managing the wait list. We tell people, we get about 5 applications a day. A 1-bedroom studio in San Francisco Bay goes 700 square feet, $3,500 US a month. It's crazy. And so a lot of people looking for cheap housing. And so we tell people the wait list is long, it's many, many years. If the boat's already in the harbor, it's only about a year. And so basically the only people that become liveaboards are people that have been in the harbor for about a year. So we get to see, do they use their boat? Do they maintain it? Are they good citizens? Are they the kind of boater you want to be next door on your boat? So managing it that way, it is not a problem at all, and it's a huge benefit to the marina. Another one is Airbnb. It's unavoidable. Airbnb is just one of many bed and breakfast sort of operations. They have 3,300 castles in Airbnb. They have 2,200 tree houses in Airbnb. They have tens of thousands of boats. And the problem of boats is, it's maritime law, it's on the water, much higher liability. It normally voids the marina's insurance, it voids the boat's insurance, it violates leaseholder conditions if you're on state land, there's occupancy taxes. Marinas just kick them out. And so they're constantly being kicked out, kicked out, kicked out. So, but the sharing economy is not going away. So we decided to try to make it an opportunity, and we set up a program called Yacht Suites, which is a legal Airbnb program. We have about 10 boats in it, and 40 to 80 feet, and because of the location, these boats are generating $300 to $500 a day. Because of where we're located, it's all business users. We don't have weekend party people or families. It's businessmen coming and looking for a hotel room. And for me, one of the things that's sad is somebody has a beautiful boat, they use it once or twice, and they say, you know what, I'm feeling so guilty, I'm not using my boat, I'm going to sell it. And I say, wait, try Yacht Suites. Put it in Yacht Suites. If you're going to sell it anyway, it'll be kept spotless. It'll generate money in the meantime. It'll cover all your costs. Anything you have to put in the boat is now tax deductible. So lots of financial benefits. And you've got somebody keeping an eye on it. It's like having a caterer taking care of your boat. And guess what happens? A, they often don't sell their boat because it's always ready to go. People are buying boats to put it in the program sometimes. And the boat's always ready. Effective management's essential. Boats are the baby for some people, and they want to know it's really being taken care of. And so having very high quality operations is essential. People tell us we've had more than 500 Google reviews. Every single review has been 5 stars. People say, I'll never stay in a hotel room again. I've never slept so well in my life. I had no idea. They end up buying boats, so it's a way to introduce people to boating. 95% of our users are repeat customers, so you're not having to hand-hold them over and over again on how to use the head or how to do this or how to do that. It's been absolutely 100% positive. We've had 0 issues, and it's probably the most profitable part of the harbor now. You're in the hotel business, so when you have a problem, the head's clogged or something, you can't wait 2 days. You got to fix it right then and there. And the talent has to be people that understand boats. You can't have, it's not just an administrative job. So before the hook comes out, I'm going to just wrap up and talk about how to put your marina in the blue ocean, in blue water. Build a community. Recognize that you're in the hospitality business. Embrace all boaters. The traditional keelboat boaters are an increasingly small minority of boaters in general. Embrace the sharing economy. Change is good if you embrace it. Landside and on-the-water amenities, lots of social activities, a safe, clean, high-quality environment. Redefine your market, redefine your marina, and make your competitors irrelevant. That's my story.
Thank you, Mark. I find even after the number of years I've been in the industry, I learn new things every day, and I picked up quite a few things from Mark's talk. I hope everyone out there did the same. I'd now like to introduce John LeMan. John's been in the industry actually longer than I have, so he must be old. John's the director and owner of International Marina Consultants. He graduated as an engineer in 1981. He's got an absolute passion for sailing and yacht racing, and understandably, once he graduated, he gravitated towards maritime engineering from the very start. Growing up in a boating family, he spent most of his life boating in and out of marinas and prides himself in having a sound practical understanding of what marinas need to achieve and good design outcome, both for the owner and the user. International Marina Consultants, IMC, was heavily involved in the creation of the original Australian standard guideline for marina design. They were there when the original guideline came out, and they were there again when it was updated, and they were also there again with the latest update which has just been completed and is out for public comment at the moment. So with over 37 years marina design experience and designed well over 100 marinas worldwide, John is the chair and major contributor to the engineering review for the latest marina standard update. John the man. Just before you start, John, can everyone hook onto the app and do the vote online or whatever it's called? I could find the real name, but the vote online will do. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, my topic obviously is the update to the Marina standard. As John said, I'm pretty old because I've been in it longer than he has, but I'm that old that we started designing marinas before we had a standard, so we sort of had to do a lot of research and sort out the parameters that we needed to do to design marinas, both from an engineering and from a planning perspective. So it's great to be still a part of the code or the Marina standard, and to give some experience to the update. The update of the standard had a sort of a bit more urgency about it when Standards Australia said, well, you haven't updated this code for a long time, do we really need it? And that certainly fired us into action, particularly through the Marine Industry Association. And we assembled a good cross-section, I think, of the marina industry. We have government department involvement from WA, from New South Wales, from Queensland. We have consultants from Tasmania and Queensland and Victoria. We have the Fire Authority represented from several states. We have the representatives of the Marina Industry Association, the Boating Industry Association, the Institute of Engineers and the Institute of Naval Architects. So we did try to put together, and I think we achieved putting together a good cross-section to study this or to do the update. Just quickly run through the principal areas that we considered necessary to focus on for the update. Certainly since 2001 there's been some changes in vessel design, so obviously updating vessel statistics, their drafts, their beams and displacements, so that we can also not just design for today but see where those trends are going and making sure we're relevant with the criteria we have for designing your marinas. Berth size configurations, there was a few things there that came out over the sort of 17, 18 years of using the old code, so I looked at that. Some structural loading updates, disability access considerations, more and more to the fore as we get on. Car parking, there's some significant changes there. And marina berth services, including fire services. So just looking at the vessel characteristics, you can see from that graph there, the green line is where the old code or the current code to be updated. So you'll see there's a bit of anomaly sort of after we get to 30 metres and above, and that's mainly because when we were designing things in 2001 there weren't that many boats around that were bigger than 30 metres. So I guess the data was a little bit sketchy there. We've certainly corrected that with a lot more data. And there's over 1,000 vessels in there to make up the data. The middle line is the average and the top dotted red line is the 95th percentile. But we've put this is for monohulls, we've put this into practice with it updated the tables. Not a great change except for those larger vessel lengths, because the code goes up to 50 metres and we have a lot more data to be able to work on those larger sizes. Again, the relationships of draft to overall length, so we've updated that. There's not much of a change, but it's reassuring to know we're sort of still heading in the right direction and no great changes. Probably the monohull vessels, in looking at draft to overall length, there's a bit of bit of a sort of wavering from where the average is, and that's mainly due to the more advanced racing yacht design, where you're looking at the more power to weight ratio boats, so you've got very long, deep bulb keels. And so what we've done with the standard is, in looking at that, we've given average vessel drafts, and then we've also given the 95th percentile, so that if you're designing a marina, and it's very critical to look at the depth of the channel. For example, you've got a long channel coming into a marina and you don't want to burden it with the guy that's got the deepest racing yacht. Everybody else has to pay for him and get it down deep. So we've tried to put in data so that designers can use it in a relevant way, and provide that data so they can do that. Now, catamarans. 2001, we sort of didn't really have much call for multi-hull berths, and there weren't that many around in marinas. Well, that's certainly changed. And Mark mentioned what's happening in the Med. Well, it's certainly happening here as well, and we're a little bit of a catch-up in marinas now. We're probably trying to fit a few more into new marinas to make up for the old ones that didn't have catamaran berths. So we've included in the tables the data that we've collated for catamarans as well. So that's also the draft to length as well as the beam to length ratios. And then the other thing that the code didn't have previously was displacement to overall length, and that sort of more in the engineering design and making sure that structurally your marina is adequate for impact loadings and things like that. And it gets more important as you get to the larger vessels, and we are getting larger vessels, as Mark was alluding to. Same thing's happening here. We have much bigger boats than we used to have. So we've included a table based on the research that we've done for vessel displacement for structural design. Berth size configurations, what I sort of found with the existing code is that we were fine when we were sort of in the smaller boat range, but now we're getting to the bigger boat range, and we sort of didn't take a lot of attention because there wasn't many really big boats around, but and the data was pretty sort of sketchy, but as we get to larger boats, we were still keeping the same distance between boats, and of course that makes a little bit of difference. It's fine when you've got a 10-metre boat and you can fit it in with a metre. This is the existing code, so you've got a metre there. 20 metres, you've still only got a metre, but these are based on the 95th percentile beam of boats, so you can put a fat one and a skinny one, so generally the feedback is that it's been working fairly well. But where we do get a problem is, we increased the code existing, we increased the 30 metres up to 1.5. Again, a little bit of a squeeze, but you're not going to have two very fat vessels side by side. Well, hopefully you don't. But where the big problem was that in 50 metres, and of course there's a lot more 50-metre berths around, well, you've still got 1.5 metres. Well, they've got professional skippers and all the rest, but it's just way too much to ask them to, squeeze a boat in there. So we've increased in that upper range the distance between fingers for double-slipped boats. So that's probably the major change there. I wouldn't say major, but just a tweaking to get a little bit more usable. Structural loadings, I think it was pretty well done back in 2001. We don't have a lot of changes to that, but there is obviously the vessel displacements, which we didn't have in the code before, and designers could choose whatever they like. And so we did want to put some criteria in there to just have a minimum standard for structural requirements for vessel impact. So also looked at that larger range, which didn't have much consideration previously. So put in another category to lower the impact velocity, because these big 50-metre vessels, they're a lot slower, and they nurse them into the berth, and if they do have any sort of accidental impacts, well, they've really destroyed the paint job, and they probably won't get another job as a vessel skipper. So we sort of, and anecdotally, we see that there's not sort of a lot of big boats that do a lot of damage in marinas. It's hardly ever, but we still need to consider that, and we need to give some guidance to engineers structurally designing floating structures. Accessibility was one thing that we didn't think was very well covered in the 2001 edition of the standards. So we actually didn't feel that, although we had a good cross-section of people on the technical committee, we didn't feel like we had anywhere sort of the expertise to start doing criteria for disability access and things like that. So we actually got through Standards Australia, we got people involved that were actually involved in other disability standards and spent some time with them, so they did understand marinas and what we're about in marinas, and then we came up with some criteria. Probably the main one there is, I won't go into all the little details, but the main one there is that if you are going to have some part of your marina that needs to have disability access, then the criteria we're proposing is a 1 in 14 slope for 80% of the time. Now obviously that's way too flat for normal marina situations, so in the code we're not saying that the whole marina has to have disability access provisions because it's just not practical to do that. So that's certainly, don't have alarm bells about you've got to have 1 in 14. The other thing too is that when a code gets upgraded or updated, it's not retrospective. So, you know, if you've got a marina that was designed before a code, you don't have to suddenly go and change it all, although it gives you some room for thought. The other side of that probably is that if you are increasing your marina, they may come back and say, well, look, no, we want the rest of it to comply. So there's some things that can happen there. But obviously, as I'm saying, that very flat slope, you can't do it everywhere in the marina, so we were of the opinion the best way to handle it is to have, if you want disability access, you have it, you know, say a separate pontoon with them in the marina, and you can provide for that. So the existing code says you can go up to 1 in 3.5 slope. We all think that's a little bit steep, particularly in the more litigious society where people slip over and they ring the lawyer up, and we've flattened that out to 1 in 4, which is not a big adjustment, but I've always been designing for 1 in 4 since the sort of the year dot, and I think most other people have. Car parking requirements, now that's a big change from what we have in the 2001. 2001 says your car parking for marina berths. Now this is marina berths only, not all the other ancillary things that, you know, require car parking, but marina berths only. We managed to get as many studies as we could of existing marinas and traffic studies, more later ones that were done for new marinas, and the 0.3 to 0.6, which was previously in the code, is just way too high. And the research that we had, and a few here contributed to that in existing marinas where they had good gate control, and it was for berth owners only, and they collected data which was really good, and we got just over 0.2 even in the busy times of the sort of the Boxing Day and Easters, and so clearly there's been quite a change, and we shouldn't be burdening new marinas with a whole heap of car parking. That really isn't required, but so we ended up at a 0.25 and debated it quite a bit, but we were comfortable with that, and we can't see that that's going into the future is going to start increasing again with all the sort of technology of self-driving things and all the rest of it that we heard this morning. But we do emphasise when people think, crikey, that's a huge change, and our marina is sort of, you know, it's got a lot of car parks that get filled up. But bear in mind that when I point to this 0.25, it's marina berths only. It doesn't include restaurants or boat servicing facilities. They're still in there as additional things to add into your marina car parking requirements. Berth services, there was very little guidance in power requirements. We've now got, thanks to research, and John was actually the chair of that panel, but a lot of research has been done, and sort of looking at the user requirements of the various sizes. There's now a table there to give guidance in what services, single phase, 3-phase, and how it accelerates up as you get into the bigger boats. So I think that's a welcome addition to the code. Fire services, we had a number of fire authorities brought in to look at this because it has been a contentious issue. And the problem that we had, Darren Vo may discuss it tomorrow morning first up, but the problem of course is that fire authorities in different states have different rules and different regulations, and we couldn't get a consensus, I don't think, although we've progressed, but not a sort of, you couldn't say that every state is going to be the same because they just aren't, but there's quite a bit of advance that's been done in guidance, and it's now as an informative section in Appendix C, so hopefully that gives some better guidance in what we're likely to have to put into a new marina. We're now at the public consultation phase, so we've done our bit and there's a draft out there, and so you can go to the Standards Australia website, and then you just go down to the search, the public comment pilot, and then you'll see the AS 3962 Marina Design Standard, and then you can put in your comments in there. The only thing, and it sort of leads on from a lot of that Mark was emphasising, is that but you know, we can design to a standard, and I view the Marina standard as it's sort of a minimum guideline for where you should be in all these aspects, albeit I think the Australian code is a good minimum. You know, if you're designing for that, you won't sort of have any problems, but there's a little bit more to designing a whole marina and operating a marina than just was it designed to a standard. As I say, I think it's more a backstop for the minimum requirements, and you really need to sort of look at the whole marina, how it operates, etc. So, you know, what makes a good marina? Sure, good design, you've got to start with that, but it's got to have good integration with the onshore and the offshore. There's, you know, a number of marinas where you can have your car parks that are way far away in the distance, amenities, there's a whole list of things, but, you know, if it's not a good integrated marina and it doesn't work with how the whole thing operates, you're going to have some problems. Good facilities, you know, there's a number of marinas that have won awards, and we've got the awards tomorrow night, but you know, marinas that are they're not new, they've been around for quite a while, and they are winning awards because they are improving their marina, they're keeping it to a good standard of maintenance, etc. So very important to you know, keep the good facilities, obviously good management. If you haven't got good management, well, you can have all the design bits and pieces, but you've got to match it with good management, and of course, dear to my heart, is meets user expectations. If you don't do that, you won't get a good tick. And I'd just like to sort of raise the issue of, if you've got a marina, and the Marina Industry Association promotes the Golden Anchor accreditation for marinas, which is sort of a 0 to 5, 5-star or 5 anchor rating. Now, if you're not sort of looking at that or considering that, well, I'd suggest that you do, because even if you just get the checklist, and you can go down there and look at the checklist of all the things you should be looking at in operating your marina, and what gives it a good mark or a bad mark. You've got ambience, you've got policies, planning and procedures, and of course there's a lot of subheadings between all these that you get marked on. Customer services, on water, onshore, but as I say, it's a great checklist, because you might go down there and say, oh yeah, I didn't think about that one, and sure enough, if you haven't thought about it, well, it could probably do with some improvement. So I would encourage you, all marina owners and operators, to consider that. And if we have some questions.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. I guess both of those sessions could have gone on for probably another hour, but we've got a very full afternoon. Does anyone have any questions for Mark or John? Up the back, Les? Or...
Hey, John, there's
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Any other questions? John, sorry, fire hydrant systems. Fire hydrant systems for marinas are something that's going to be looked at for new standards, but I see that we've just referred them to the old Australian standard for fire systems. Is that too hard to win that battle, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, I actually wasn't personally involved in that part of the update of the standard, and Darren Vo was certainly more across that, having to try and coordinate the various authorities from the various states. I think Darren might sort of mention that a little bit more, but it was very difficult to to get a consensus to say, well, this will be decreed with what you can and can't have. I've been through a similar problem about 30 years ago, and sitting down with fire authorities and trying to sort out what is and isn't required. And I was suggesting things from a more practical marina management perspective, but we find that's pretty difficult to talk to fire departments, and I was basically told, look, John, we don't tell you how to design marinas, don't tell us how to fight fires. So I can understand that sort of some of the dilemmas that can go on, and how various authorities want to or don't want to address this. We welcome public comment obviously at this stage, but I think Darren could probably tomorrow. Do you want to do it now?
Just very quickly on that, Craig, the fire brigade became very, very involved in the provision of the standard, and there is an Australian standard for hydrants on marinas that was put together by the fire brigade without any consultation with the Marina Association or any boating body, and they stated that there would need to be hydrants on marinas. However, the materials that you need to build a hydrant system on a marina don't comply with the standard that they wrote. So we've left it as grey as we possibly can, but I would say if you're building a brand new marina, forget retrospective, they can't really force you to do that, but I would say every new marina will need hydrants, in my opinion.
So Darren,
It will be hard to beat.
I think
Sorry.
Darren's got the mic.
Sorry, Darren. Darren's even more on top of it than I am.
Yeah, the context, as John said, the issue was that the hydrant code came out. The hydrant code basically contained a uniformity appendix that said that all marinas had to have hydrants. The reality being that, of course, that there was no Australian standard for flexible code, the flexible piping and the flexible coupling, so there was an inconsistency in that particular position. The fire brigades, not all jurisdictions, but a number of jurisdictions, Queensland and others, basically have a code that their guidance note says that they want hydrants on all marinas. But the reality is there's this disconnection between that and the ability to impose something in the standard. So what we got to was a framework, and we went back to first principles. What we want to do with a marina fundamentally is that there's, ultimately every marina is different. Every circumstance is different, and the interesting thing is that hydrants are only relevant to a point where there's a responding fire brigade within a reasonable distance. If the responding fire brigade isn't within a reasonable distance, hydrants are perfectly relevant, because they're only used by the responses themselves. So the second part to that was that we created an informative appendix. So effectively, if you have a fixed marina, so it's concrete deck and things like that, then existing hydrant code capture it anyway. When you had a floating marina, we provided provision within the informative appendix that essentially provided for performance outcomes. So it was to really look at every circumstance, look at distances, look at provisions, because what we were trying to get to was a circumstance where the hydrants remain on the land side of the gangway. Now, in circumstances where you were more than 2 hose runs from the top of the gangway out to a boat, then the friction within a hose after 2 hose runs is too much to run a third hose run. You won't get the pressure out of the end of the hose. So there's a practical relationship between it in terms of trying to get an outcome. So what's incorporated within it then is provisions to have pump sets potentially out on the marina itself in those circumstances, and to bring in active type of systems, fire cars, fire boats, various other infrastructure that leads you to an outcome. So what we try to do is empower the marina designers to basically come up with fire engineered solutions as against what the fire brigades were necessarily pushing for, which was the mandatory, fixed pipe hydrant system, hydrant heads every 30 metres across the entire marina. So the standard the draft as it's out there at the moment contains that framework, and that's something that everyone needs to have a look at and see how it works in the right ones.
As John mentioned, the standard is out for public exhibition, and we hope that that's not one of the areas that gets hammered. Sorry.
Thank you. I really enjoyed both those presentations. Thank you. This question relates into marine pollution prevention. And Mark, in your presentation there, you had quite a focus on sewage pump-out facilities. I'm wondering if in the new that there's some guidelines there with regards to pump-out facilities at marinas.
Sure, the question is guidelines for pump-out systems at the marina. I'll say two things. One, a surprising result, which was positive. Most marinas in the States, it's required to have a pump-out station, and the theory is boats get in their way, periodically go over there and pump out, and 2 in the morning, it's overflowing, they don't do it, and so it doesn't work very well. It turns out to extend it up and down the docks is simply PVC pipe with a hydrant every 40, 50 feet, because you have a hose cart and with a wireless transmitter in our harbor. So there's a hydrant every 50 feet on every dock. And so when somebody wants to pump out, they grab the cart, they roll it to their boat, they push a button, the pump starts, and one end goes on the hydrant, one end goes in the pump out fixture on the boat. It's done in 2 minutes, and then they trundle it back, and that's that. And the thing that happened is, it's so easy, everybody uses it. It's a little bit, it reminds me of when smoking in buildings became illegal. Nowadays, if somebody lights up in a corner, everybody knows, and they get run out. And so the same thing happens in the harbor. Nobody pumps out anymore. So that's one of the benefits. It's really not much of a cost differential, and in the States at least, there are grant programs to fund it. The other thing that happens is when the water gets to a certain point, mussels and oysters and shellfish grow more prolifically, and every mussel and every oyster filters about 120 gallons a day. Our marina, we test it twice a year. It's cleaner than San Francisco Bay itself. So Stanford swims their annual triathlon, for example, in our harbor, which is 900 athletes from around the country, just because the water is so clean, and that's a consequence of the pump out. So it's a really, really good thing. People love it, and once they're exposed to it, they don't go back. And it's really quite inexpensive.
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions, or are we're just about out of time, I think, Cole?
We're just waiting for the minister, so a couple more questions. There's the chance. Any other questions? James, you're a marina designer.
Perhaps I just...
John,
look.
John, I'll ask you a question.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to answer, just because that was obviously from the state's point of view here. If you haven't got some pretty strong regulations in your berth licence agreements, then you're sort of well behind the 8 ball. But as Mark said, well, people are pretty conscious of the environment they're in. That's why we go boating. So you get some good policing as well. In Queensland, if you have more than 6 berths, a marina that's got more than 6 berths, you won't get an approval unless you have a pump-out facility. So there's a lot of authority regulations, and it's certainly a lot better than what it used to be, as everything needs to be. And I don't know of too many marinas that I've been to that have a water quality problem. There have been some that may have, when they got a sudden influx of houseboats or things like that, it got addressed pretty quickly. And the trouble is, of course, you buy in the 8 ball, you've got to tidy it up again. But I think we do a reasonably good job in the industry of keeping marinas, and as you say, water quality. And you look at the fish round marinas and everything else, though, we don't have any great concerns, but we've got to keep working at it.
Thanks, John. Cole, we've got one more question or not?
Any more questions?
Well, I've got one. Mark mentioned catamarans, and personally I'm seeing a lot more catamarans come into the Australian market. It is fairly easy to reconfigure existing marinas, but are you seeing a lot more requests for marina berths with additions to marinas? A lot more catamaran berths at least for...
Yeah, what we're finding now is that, well, it's ever increasing. Say 5 years ago, we were designing with new marinas with about 15% marina berths. There was only about 10% of occupants had catamarans, but we're doing a catch-up for the older marinas that didn't have any catamaran berths at all. And so we have given that some attention. Certainly that's not within the code to say you shall design so many catamaran berths, but certainly all my clients I advise, well, this is what we need to do, this is the percentage we need if you're going to look at the whole market. 2001, people that had catamarans, quite often they were sort of home built and they were sort of cruising off around the coastline and didn't want to spend too much money, and so they didn't go into marinas, but obviously that has changed dramatically, so, and we're certainly giving it a lot more attention.
Cheers. Cole, how are we going?
Just a question, Scott.
Look, if we're still waiting for the Minister, another one that I got sent to me was, well, you know, where do I see things going in the future? Well, certainly materials-wise, there is a lot of new technology and new materials that we can use in marinas, and we're pushing the use of that to get down the maintenance, because maintenance just becomes more and more of a burden. Just doing maintenance, doing any labour work, workplace health and safety, environment, we really want to cut down the maintenance that we need to do in marinas. So a lot of things like composite materials, using a lot more of those, a lot of advances happening there to get away from having to spend a lot of time maintaining a marina. And no marina owner wants to spend most of the time, you know, maintaining a marina. He wants to be managing the marina. So there's quite a bit of advancement there, and I encourage people to keep working on that.
Thank you. Scott?
Yes, Scott Benson, Ocean Marina, patio play. Actually, two questions, so I've got another question, but is there a prominence, more or less, of catamarans in, like, Queensland versus South Australia, or they're about the same?
No, there is, when you get more coastal cruising, when you get shallow places like Moreton Bay, Great Sandy Strait, so you can sort of pick it reasonably well, but where you get, and you do get more catamarans in those areas. I think probably where you're going out into big ocean waves, maybe not so much. So there is a difference depending on where you are and what sort of environment you're doing your boating in.
I want to bring Mark in on this as well. Mark, I need, you've got to earn your keep, mate. Your thoughts on catamarans for Australia? I mean, you've seen what's happening to the US market, you've seen the Caribbean market. We follow them very closely. Just answering Scott's questions,
Yeah.
I think.
It's, well, the thing about catamarans is it's such easy sailing. They're stable, they're wide, there's lots of room, they can go almost anywhere. They're so well designed. Half of all boats in the world are now made by Beneteau. And every marina in the States has rows and rows of lagoons. And a lagoon 400 takes the equivalent of two 40-foot slips. But it's easy sailing, so that's a clear and obvious trend. There must be, in just the British Virgin Islands, 50 charter companies. They all have wheelboats. They all have catamarans. I don't know that you can rent a regular boat there anymore. So it's a clear trend. And the nice thing is, if you had a bunch of smaller slips, you just remove some fingers and they become catamaran slips. You bolt through the fingers together and you've got a party barge. So it's not much of a problem for marinas, I think, to accommodate. But it is a trend that's growing fast because they are now safe. They have breakaway rigs. They have hatches on the bottom, so if they do flip, you can get out. They are more stable upside down after all. But I think it's a trend this year.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of a change to the program. The minister's passing a few laws in Parliament, so must be held up on the vote. So first of all, another thing I'm an expert at is giving away grog. So I'd like to hand quite a nice bottle to Mark and to John and thank them for their effort. I'll grab one for myself because I always do that. And while Darren has already given us some insight into hydrants on marinas, we'll get Darren up and running in the next session. Everyone stand up and then shake yourselves loose and then sit down and get ready for Darren. Thank you.